Something that sounds very fancy going on with our friends at Pig Trail Nation. And so we're going to bring on one of the folks from Pig Trail Nation right now to talk about that and a bunch of other things. Nick Petraccione joining us from Pig Trail Nation. And we appreciate your time today, Nick. How you doing? You ready to coach us on how to be television goobers? Because you're not a TV goober, you're a pro. We would be the goobers.
Hey, I've been listening to the last 30 minutes, and you guys have been cracking me up on my couch here. So I think you'll fit in just fine. It's just the same thing. Just put a camera right in front of you guys. I'll teach you the makeup stuff. I don't know it really at all either, but I make it work, you know, so a couple tricks of the trade.
The problem there, Nick, is that maybe I've heard the camera adds 15 pounds. What we need is for the camera
to lose 15
No,
pounds.
it's not that, Drew. We need the camera to add 15 IQ points to the rest of us. I don't think it does that.
Hey, you never have felt less manly when you have to powder the top of your head because it will shine a little too bright under the TV light. So, I mean, that might be the least of your...
I think I like this guy right now. I think we have something in common here, Nick.
So you're zero air.
Yeah, you're telling me that a guy like me who's got a shiny head could actually be on television?
Have you watched the Pig Trail Nation? I do that every day.
Well, congratulations to you for not going the route of plugs, because I know that that's something that a lot of folks in TV might feel some pressure to do. So you're not a native Arkansan, right? Where are you from, and what brought you here?
Yeah, originally I'm from New York, Albany, New York, and then I spent 3 years doing sports reporting out in Montana. And after COVID kind of ended sports around the country a few years ago, I looked for the next opportunity and found it right here in Fayetteville last February. So almost coming up on a year now out in Arkansas. And I've enjoyed the time so far, getting to cover some big-time SEC sports instead of, Montana State and Class C volleyball. So I've been loving it out here, man. So
you were in Bozeman. I spent a summer in Montana, 1998. Helena in the Pioneer League did radio for them. So I've got some...
Oh, with the Brewers?
Yeah, old Kendrick Legion Field. You drop a lit match and the whole place would have gone up in flames.
Man, Helena's an underrated town, man. I love Montana. I know Yellowstone is that new big hit show. I haven't watched it, but I heard it's pretty good. But yeah. Hopefully it does Montana justice because that place is gorgeous.
This is great, Drew. It's an adventurous guy. It's a New Yorker. Yeah. He's an upstate New Yorker. They don't call it Northern New York. He's an upstate New Yorker who has been adventurous enough to live in places such as Montana and now Arkansas. So tell me, Nick, now again, Albany's going to be different than New York City, but everybody in Albany's got New York City teams, I would imagine. What would you say would be like the major difference between sports fans in New York and here in Arkansas? I know there's a lot of them.
Arkansas fans can cook better. I'll tell you that.
There you go. A little more bacon, a little more butter.
I think and we're all during a Bills game in February, we're dressed up. You can't even see our faces. It's so cold. So the weather here is always great. You got warm weather fans sometimes, but yeah, I think that's the big difference. I went to a catfish fry when we went to Ole Miss with the Arkansas Roadhogs. I had catfish for the first time at that Ole Miss football game, and I loved it. And now I like catfish. So I'm learning something new every day. So
Drew, he sounds
can
like
cook
me.
Better for sure. Arkansas fans over New York.
Drew, he sounds like me. 22 years ago, I got my first invite to a catfish picnic or whatever it was out in Lone Oak. And I'm like,
a fish fry is what we call them around here.
A catfish fry. I'm like, what is this stuff? Oh my gosh, this is incredible. Why have I not eaten this before? He sounds like me.
See, I'm a little shocked that it takes people so long to know the deliciousness of fried fish that you're gotten this far into adulthood and just now having catfish, Nick. It blows my mind. I mean, I'm not from Arkansas. I'm from Memphis, Tennessee. It's not really that much different as far as culture goes. But I guess speaking of like Montana, you said you haven't watched Yellowstone. I highly recommend it. It is great. But what kind of culture shock was it going from all the way out east in Albany to Bozeman, Montana? I bet that was a pretty big difference in culture.
Did you eat Rocky Mountain oysters?
I've never seen a sky that big. I never ate a Rocky Mountain oyster. I stayed away from them. Maybe I was wrong because I didn't think I liked fish until about 2 months ago. So maybe I should have tried those. But the mountains, I mean, I've never seen mountains that big before. I walk out my house every single day to these giant 12,000-foot mountains. There's amazing fishing, hiking, camping. I mean, that place is anything an outdoorsy person would love. It's right in Bozeman, Montana. And then oddly, there's like a bunch of celebrities walking around that place all the time, like Tom Brady and Phil Mickelson. They played that golf match up in Montana, the Capital One, because they both have houses right up there in Big Sky Country, like an hour from where I used to live. So you could just run into some random people all the time in Montana. You're like, what is Julian Edelman doing here? He's at a coffee shop in Bozeman.
That is crazy. But you're obviously on the TV side of the journalism thing that we all do, and I have chose radio because for me, TV just it felt so much harder, I guess. I thought that radio was an easier, more relaxed venture of journalism.
If you notice, when it comes to writing, Drew doesn't like to work
radio.
Very hard.
I don't. I'm a real coaster. You know, I get by the minimum, and that's what I like about radio. What was the thing that drew you to TV as far as, you know, the journalism aspect, you know, away from writing or being a talking head like me and Phil?
Oh, man, that's a good question. I don't know if I've ever thought about it. Maybe it was just something I always wanted to do as a kid. I always watched ESPN, and I always watched the sport news, and I just thought, hey, that's what I want to do. And I guess like my 8-year-old self was right about one thing in life. So I ended up, I guess that's the reason. I just wanted to do that from a young age and stuck with it.
All right, we got to put you on the spot about your teams here. And when you live in New York, you've got plenty of teams to choose from. So you could be a bandwagoner if you want. You can switch affiliations if you want. I had a cousin who decided to be a Mets fan in 1986 and has been a Yankees fan for his entire life. But he had all these teams to choose from. I grew up in Pittsburgh. I had no choice. So which teams did you choose to pull for, being a native New Yorker?
I'm going to get a lot of hate because I'm all over the board. You know, I love the Yanks. So that's my New York team. And then other than that, I'm an Eagles fan. I like the Pittsburgh Penguins, so shout out there. That's always been my team.
There you go.
And then the Miami Heat. Those are my big four.
You're all over the place, man.
Yeah. Absolutely. All over the place. I think I just stuck with logos I liked as a kid.
Hey, why not?
That's one way to do it, especially, you know, if you got to choose. I know personally, I never got to choose my sports affiliations. My dad made that decision for me real quickly. So if you get to choose, you know, pick any way you'd like.
Parents make some decisions for you. Sometimes it's going to be the religion you adhere to until you decide whether or not you really want to adhere to it, and the teams that you root for. Of course, you could do, like my father grew up in New York, Nick, and he chose the Yankees because his father was a New York Giants fan. And I don't think he liked his father very much.
I'll tell you, the most fun thing about growing up an Eagles fan in New York was just making fun of Giants fans for the most part. I think that's like a bonus perk, is you get to just trash on the Jets literally every year because they're terrible. So usually it's better not to root for the New York team.
Yeah, right. It sounds like it. I mean, talking about picking teams, the biggest injustice my father ever did to me is my dad's from Baltimore, and he made me a diehard, lifelong Baltimore Orioles fan. That's the one thing I will never forgive him for doing, is to create a love for such a bad team and such a bad franchise. But luckily, people that got the Arkansas Razorbacks chosen for them, that's not a sucky life. It's coming into a real enjoyable fandom here of late. What's been your favorite thing to cover since, you know, in the last 11 months since you've been here and been with Pig Trail Nation? It's been football, the Elite Eight run, college basketball, big story, or college baseball with Kevin Kopps and Dave Van Horn. What's been your favorite?
I'll tell you, Alyssa Orange, our team, Tara Talmadge, Mike Irwin, they all said, Nick, you have no idea what Arkansas sports is right now, because you came in 11 months ago and everyone became good. And you never had to suffer through those years of Arkansas football when it was just loss after loss after loss. Now they're going to bowl games, and the baseball team is on fire. Even other programs like the softball team is doing well. Gymnastics is doing really well. So I came in at the perfect time. It seems like I'm reaping all the benefits. But I have to think that Alabama game was probably the coolest atmosphere Arkansas, Alabama. I always wanted to go to like what was the mecca of college football, which is at the Alabama Stadium, and the Crimson Tide fans. And Arkansas put up an amazing fight there. So that probably was so far the coolest thing I got to experience. Was in Tampa for that Outback Bowl. That was a really cool week of coverage. So far I've just loved everywhere I've really gone. I haven't traveled much for this job until I got here. So I'm loving the ride. Anywhere they want to send me, I'll go cover some hogs.
I think we could agree that I think the major thing to me that separates, the part of the country where you and I grew up from and where we live now is the utter white-hot passion for all things college sports. I'm from a professional sports town. People are interested in Pitt when Pitt is good. In New York, they don't even know college football is happening. There's no team in the city. You got Army, you got Syracuse, and that's about it. I mean, they got basketball and all that. College baseball is like they don't even know what's going on up there. But here it's a passion for all things college sports, where in the North, certainly towards New England and where you and I are from, it's more professional sports.
Yeah, New York's like, the one thing is there's too many teams to root for, right? Not only do you have, a couple basketball teams, you have a couple ice hockey teams, you have a couple baseball teams. It seems like, there's so many options. Here you got one. And that's what I love. And the same thing I found out in Montana was they don't have any pro teams out there either. So their Saturdays are their Super Bowls. They love going out and treating college football like it is the everything to them, because it is. It's for Hog fans. I've realized this is their NFL team. This is their pro sport. I agree. I think that's the thing you said about New York. There's so many teams. There's so many options. The passion isn't there because everyone's rooting for 30 different teams, and it's really cool to see. Like Hunter Yurchek always says, there's only one Razorback in the nation. There's only one logo. Everyone can be the Tigers or whatever, but there's only one Razorback, and it really shows.
So I'm going to give you another difference between television and radio. I don't think the folks at Pig Trail Nation would want you to bring up what I'm about to bring up. How could you live in Montana and not attend? Now, this thing stopped a couple of years ago because of, well, I guess there were deaths at this event, and they're maybe not cooking the thing very right. But in a little town called Clinton, Montana, Nick, for 30 years, they held, and I'm not joking, the Testicle Festival. Rocky Mountain oysters, just checking to see who cooked them the best. How could you live there and not attend this fabulous event?
I didn't even know that existed in old Clinton, Montana. They would, at like Montana State basketball games, they would have like Rocky Mountain Oyster Night, and they would hand them out to the first 5,000 fans.
It's a thing there.
And you just have people just eat them in the stands by the dozen. But I never, no, you know what? Maybe that's something when I go back to Montana, I'll send a review to you guys on is how I think those traditional Yellowstone Rocky Mountain oysters are.
Well, I've got one word to describe the flavor anyway, because I did sample them.
I feel like I'd try it.
The flavor profile would be earthy.
I mean,
earthy,
yeah.
You don't make it sound that appetizing, but I mean, it's something that I feel like if you're there, kind of a win in Rome situation.
Have a good dipping sauce.
Yeah. I mean, you could cover anything in good barbecue or good hot sauce, and it could be edible. And I think that's what I'll have to do with the Rocky Mountain oysters. But, Nick, now that you've been around the SEC, where they like to say it just means more, and fan bases, like you've gone out on the road with football and basketball. Now, who is meaner? Who have the harder, meaner fans? Is it NFL or is it SEC?
Oh, man.
Ooh, SEC. I think there's a little more hatred towards other fan bases in this SEC. I mean, I remember when Dave Van Horn and Tony Vitello got into it during baseball. I mean, the amount of comments I saw about a former Razorback, I mean, there's some blood sometimes spilled on these comment sections on social media. I think there's a lot of passion in this conference as opposed to the NFL. I mean, a lot of the times those guys are coming and going in that league, and it's kind of expected. And here, once a Razorback, always a Razorback. It seems like, if you're competing for LSU, you're worth dirt to some of these people. So I think there's a lot of passion in the SEC. as opposed to NFL. I think there's no question.
Nick, you're really good to come on and mess around with us for as long as you did. Appreciate you, man. And we'll definitely have to do this again. Excited about this partnership with Pig Trail Nation and ESPN Arkansas. So.
BetOnline would like to wish you a happy new betting year as we continue our march to the playoffs and beyond. BetOnline remains the #1 spot for all the best sports wagering action for 2022. New year and a new updated desktop and mobile wagering to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use our promo code BELIEVE to get started. That's BLEAV. From football, basketball, hockey, boxing, and UFC, right to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for 2022. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to wager on all your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts.